Andrew, we were just talking about Nick Eubanks right before we started recording, and I had to stop you and say, you got to say this on camera recording. As CMO of Semrush, who's done a lot of M&A, how did that have those deals come across your plate? We're specifically talking about the buy.
Yeah, it's a big question. We get this a lot. Typically, I would say kind of in private settings, not necessarily on podcasts. But I'm happy to talk about it. I think it's very interesting certainly for search communities, certainly for those who are looking to expand organic footprint. Look, in terms of we're talking about Nick. We started a couple of years ago a program at Semrush called Owned Media. And that is really expanding on the organic channels that we run for organic acquisition, or our own SEO programs, if you will. It occurred to us actually just about a month after I joined the company in 2021. We had maybe the first time, because it was just after as COVID was de-thawing, I would say. Yeah. We had an in-person leadership meeting with like 6 of my direct reports. And as part of that exercise, I said, look, I don't typically run traditional offsites, so they're usually pretty high energy and very mixed in terms of the format. And one of those sessions was bring 2 ideas that are so crazy you think it'll never get funded.
Oh, I love that.
And I just love this idea because I find that, even very senior VPs, SVPs, like people who are so smart, they often limit their own ideation or thinking because, there's just this kind of undercurrent or undertone of we don't have the budget, it would be impossible to integrate. It would take us too long. We're a public company. Our investors might be nervous about it. Yeah. And this actually was one of those takes was the acquisition for Backlinko. And we had never done it before. I've never done that type of M&A because, again, there's the kind of corporate M&A, which is what most companies go and they acquire companies for revenue. But in certain cases, we're actually looking to acquire for traffic, not for revenue. So it's very interesting. Of course, we want to maintain revenue. We want to maintain whatever company we bring in. But Backlinko was actually our first test with that program. And so Nick and the team have grown quite significantly that portfolio. Also, Third Door Media acquisition last year. We continue to explore. So yeah, I would say it's a non-standard approach, but it's working for us.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, impressive acquisitions for sure across and exploding topics as well as we were talking about. Mm-hmm. Brian, we had on the podcast previously. Nick, a long time ago, as great. Well, who had a lot of respect. But jumping back, you're leading Semrush's very impressive marketing team. What does that team look like? Curious how it's structured, how you think about it. We'd love to hear more.
Sure. So, I think first off, what's really important to say about the Semrush marketing team, especially as we get larger and larger and, we speak to multiple new audiences. Marketing is quite unique, I would say, at Semrush because we're a SaaS business. Our ultimate goal is to drive as many efficient registrations and new users coming through marketing programs. So as one of the primary drivers for revenue of the business, marketing at Semrush is structured a bit differently than at most companies, I would say. Most companies, there's a straight sales assist or it's like demand gen, like 100% demand gen, or 90%, maybe 5% PR, 5% brand, these types of things. But at Semrush, we are very focused on new user acquisition. And again, at an increasingly more efficient rate each year, which becomes even more challenging as CPC goes up, and we get just like everybody else in the industry squeezed by Google as well with updates with traffic and rankings. We're certainly prone to that as well. But in terms of how we're structured, I would say I have 7 direct reports. That's broken down between brand and brand experience, which thinks about PR, communications, social and online reputation, also our community engagement. We have a digital marketing team. So that is, I think you had a question in here around how do we structure, when do we go to agencies? I'll just cut right to it. We don't really trust as much in terms of agency. I think for certain applications it works, but for core operations like running digital campaigns and user acquisition, trust is maybe too strong of a word. As marketers, we can manipulate data to tell any story we want.
Right.
And I think there's good and bad there. And I think that we have, we've run it in the past where we've done external things, doesn't go so well, and really for the wrong reasons, actually. Like we're okay if you launch something and it doesn't perform as expected. but there are certain lines of owning up to failure, owning up to the experiment that failed. And there's another one of saying, "Oh, that's fine. It's not such a bad result." There's problems with ownership, I find, when it comes to agency, because you're always trying to save the relationship or save the contract. And again, it's not. I wouldn't say it's like a core mistrust, but as a data and marketing company, we're pretty skeptical even of our own internal reporting results and our own attribution constantly, even though it's proprietary. We're always querying it, always checking, always seeing if there was some anomaly. And so I think, having a digital marketing team in-house, we also do our creative in-house. We have a creative agency. When I joined, we did not have this agency. We had a handful of graphic designers. When it came to these large-scale performance campaigns and even brand campaigns, it wasn't necessarily an issue of budget, which I know is everybody's issue usually, but it was speed. So even though I had the budget to go and afford the best agencies you could work with in New York or Paris or LA or wherever, that wasn't the problem. The problem was the number of rounds that we were taking, because without being brand side, you don't know our tone, our looks, how we want to project ourselves. And so it's very difficult. Sometimes we were getting to 9 or 10 revs on like very basic things. Now we do it in-house. It's like 1 or 2 rounds. It's like lightning fast. Well, when you have someone who works full time in a design team that lives and breathes the aesthetic every day, it's just much easier. So, but you have to be able to afford it.
Right.
But it is cheaper for us, technically. Yeah.
So you said digital marketing, so I don't know. Yeah, a lot is in that.
Yep.
Did you finish your thought? You're creative.
Yeah. So creative is under brand. We have, of course, the own media program, which is many different programs. It's not only the organic search team, but it's the growth team in terms of really kind of monetizing and exploring traffic growth for assets that we bring in.
Okay.
And the affiliates team is also under Nick. And because you brought up Nick, Nick is one of our original affiliates for Semrush. So it's like an amazing thing for him to be full-time with us and to guide that team. Nice. We also do have, coming back to what kind of traditional marketing teams look like, we do have a demand generation function, and that's really aligned with our sales-led growth motion with Semrush Enterprise. Semrush Enterprise is a brand new product we went GA about a year ago. I call this, kind of core Semrush on steroids. It's built for very large applications, very large companies, sometimes that have multi-tenants, multiple SEO teams globally, multiple brands.
Right.
And we've seen a great deal of success early on, and that continues. But having like a classic demand generation function where, you have the whole funnel, the whole pipeline, it's so funny. That's the stuff of like my whole career, I'd say, before Semrush, and coming to Semrush, learning all the new adaptations. And now it's like, this is great to kind of come back and pivot a bit in that direction too. So yeah, it's really brand, it's digital marketing, it's owned media, demand generation, and then we have 2 more specific functions. One is analytics. We have a team of data scientists. Remember before I said a bit about trust on data. This team I take this team very seriously. I always often tell them to talk to me like a Labrador. There's so much going on every day. We're running incrementality tests across different regions. But this is I would call it kind of like an independent body where they can challenge performance of campaigns. They can challenge experiment design. They have a lot to query and critique of our own team, and it's designed where it reports to me, so they have a very strong voice. And then finally, it's marketing ops. This is a newer position, and we've actually taken Olga Andrenko, who's been at the company for about 14 years. And who's absolutely a stellar practitioner. But in the last couple of months, she's been so excited about what can we automate with AI, only if just for reporting. Because the amount of time we spend as a team reporting, on monthly basis, on quarterly basis to C-suite, also to investors. There's a lot that can be done to speed this stuff up, because it's the same exact stuff or data report out like every month, every quarter, every 6 months. So there's a big role to fill there. And she's also working with product teams based on what we do as a functions, on what to feed product to what to build in future, which is really cool.
So would you consider that like an AI role or?
For sure. I mean, right now, I think like we're not really huge on titles, but I think like, her title is officially, VP marketing ops. And then she put a parenthetical AI ops. It could just be VP AI ops. I don't know, but I think it's maybe the moniker sounds a bit too too much of a fad,
Yeah.
But I do think it's real. Like, even in her first month, we're doing a lot of internal hackathons. Oleg, our CEO, recently took a new role at the company, which is pretty big deal. Stepping into CTO and leading, further leading product growth, which is amazing. I'm already excited about the things that we hear from him in this new role, and so. He's running a lot of these hackathons that are taking place on the weekends in Barcelona and like other parts of the world. And she was plugged into that very early, and I think it was only 3 weeks into her role, and she sent me a couple of like GPT style prototypes of like you can enter like a natural language question of give me the result of this MRR in this region according to this campaign, and it's already kind of querying our own data set, our own proprietary data set, and it's internal, so it's secure.
Right.
Because that's everybody's like big fear, at least in big using companies,
tools,
is you're using tools and you're feeding, and like I think we all want LLMs to learn, of course, but it's like to what extent? When does it become a competitive disadvantage?
Going enterprise or a bigger enterprise push there, how do you balance?
Yeah,
like that mid-market and enterprise marketing function at the same time.
Yeah, it's a great question. We are hyper focused on. A lot of companies go through this transition, and a lot of companies in our space have gone through this transition. And I would argue some not very successfully. So we're very alert and aware of how we approach, especially the next 3 to 4 quarters. My biggest concern, something that does keep me awake, is. We have so much success with enterprise. How do we make sure we're not alienating like our core user base that built this company, really, right? That helped build the industry and shape the industry. And so we really have this distinct, I wouldn't call it, it's not like separation, like a hard wall or anything. But the demand generation function like is ring fenced in terms of spend, in terms of, like overall investment to grow pipeline. And that's a very distinct and unique audience. So there are campaigns that are separate and messaging that's separate for enterprise users, even if they're classic SEOs or lead SEOs. Because the biggest risk is if we were to say, let me just play a counter to that. If we were just to say, okay, we're going to make everything up market now. Everything's super polished, super fancy, a bit more expensive all around.
Yeah.
We face major risk of detaching from SMBs, where we care deeply about. That was one of the reasons why I joined the company in 2021. It's like, how do we bring these tools to everyday people, not just the best SEOs in the world, but how do we bring this to people where it can actually help the person who has a 1 or 2 person company or a storefront in Austin or somewhere else. And that's still a huge focus for us. We call that the PLG motion. That's huge for us.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question about how we separate it, or how do we take care?
No, I think that does make sense. Is there any examples of like the kind of marketing that you would do to that group that you just not do the other?
100%. Yeah. With the sales-led growth and demand gen piece, that is almost exclusively account-based marketing, like almost exclusively, or marketing qualified accounts. Like it's the whole evolution of account-based marketing has been pretty significant. I'd say the last 2 years especially.
Right.
But we are running a couple of brand plays because we want to reach more to CMOs, to CXOs. We're hearing more and more that it's not only SEOs who are interested in enterprise, brand leaders are, like insights leaders are. And that's really the goal over time with Semrush Enterprise, that it's not only for growth marketing or SEOs or the organic folks, but it's actually across the marketing function.
Right. So more, I know. I've recently attended some like CMO conferences and things of that nature. Is that kind of in that wheelhouse?
Yeah, 100%.
Makes sense.
100%.
So, I mean, you do so much great marketing at Semrush. Is there any particular like big win or thing that you'd want to shout out that was successful for you?
Yeah, I think I want to tell both stories because I think there's often even more gold in the things that completely flop. I would say that a couple of years ago, we went and made outsized investments in brand And at the same time, we piggybacked right on the back of that with performance to accelerate like actual acquisition from those larger spend, larger media buys. I would say one of our biggest wins a couple years ago, we found someone called Gaby, who is an SEO. I completely met her by chance. When I travel for work, which is about 70%, I'm so focused. Like every moment, I just try to get everything I can get done, and then I'll sleep to rest. But I'm not. It's not that I'm an antisocial guy. I just don't really focus on my surrounding. I just try to, I'm hyper focused on my Mac and what I'm trying to get done.
Right.
But one day, I lifted myself up, my head up, and I was like, oh, there's someone I should say hi. And this was like in London or somewhere abroad. And anyway, long story short, I met this person, Gaby, and she's like full of energy, full of life, like early in career, and like is a Semrush user. Oh. And it turns out that she had like really contextually rich like life in and out of work. And so we did a campaign, which was a first bid for a lifestyle campaign of be like Gaby, be like her. You can get all your things done, like life on your own terms, life is at your doorstep,
Right.
And that was our best performing campaign that we'd ever run, actually, because in terms of like SEO community, there's a aspirational element of, and it was first time that we had run like high production video.
I was drawn to work in marketing and SEO because I'm naturally curious. I get that curiosity from my dad.
Oh, I have to go. Bye.
That's why I use Semrush. Their suite of digital marketing tools saves me time
Can we step on it?
and helps me get the job done.
Hey kiddo, what's your ETA?
Hey, I'm on my way.
So I can enjoy the moments that matter most.
Happy birthday, sweet.
Be like Gaby. Try Semrush for free.
Usually we do very like tried and tested and proven, banner ads, videos, like things that they're all very technical in nature because that's our community. That's the jam. So I would say this performed really well. And we've had several things that have performed even better since. But I like that story of, because I think, and I talk a lot about that on stage about, like just going back to your customers. Like you can have the best creative in the world, the best ideas, but like just when was the last time you talked to somebody who's using your product? I was at Spring yesterday moderating one of the roundtables, and there was a CEO at the table who was bragging about how amazing their product was. They hadn't talked to a customer in 7 years, and I was like, I'm sorry, stop. First of all, it's amazing your product is that great, but do you think it's actually a good thing that you haven't talked to someone in 7 years? Is a long time. So that was a bit of a tricky conversation after that question.
Did you try scaling that? I mean, that would be my natural kind of intuition, but maybe it just can't scale.
Scaling with
like repeating that idea of like
of a customer.
Yeah.
So actually, to be honest, we haven't. I think the reason why I would say we did several tests after that, like moving to what didn't work, what was like completely flopped. We also tried a couple of like big humor attempts, like these, and again, this is very much on the brand side. Like, of course, there were performance element later to close down later in the funnel, but we had run a campaign. We called it CEO Kiddos.
I hope this goes well.
Remember, just talk to him like he's a 5-year-old. Boss incoming.
Have your mommy call my mommy. Bye.
Hey, ready for that marketing presentation?
Yeah.
Semrush has a tool that will drive online visibility.
I lost my phone.
It lets us see what our competitors are doing so we can beat them.
Let's go. Oops. Yum, 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 yum.
We found the gaps using Semrush, and we're already making quick wins.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool. Good job, guys.
Drive forward with digital marketing tools from Semrush.
The idea was that you would have literally 5 to 10-year-olds like in an office setting.
Okay, yeah.
Being like I want growth now, or like, show me the numbers. Like literally like a kid standing on the table, like acting like a kind of tyrant,
Right.
And this is where, and we tested it, and it came back actually very, very favorable. Yeah. And I'll never forget just showing. I just sent like a preview to my boss, to Oleg, our CEO, and his only response was "nice try." Like, and I'm like, "It's not really about you." He's like, It was just very, very funny, but it didn't perform. Like people loved it, but it didn't help us close anything. So we got certainly good reach and certain impressions and all the soft metrics that everyone loves to hate, but it didn't convert. And so we spent quite a bit on production that year. We tested a lot of different formats. But honestly, it got my head back into thinking on the more purist performance side. When was the last time we really went through our landing pages? Like really, we're very scrupulous about what's performing really well, what is total shit, like what are we not doing? And that kind of led us down that road for about another year and a half. So that led us down a path, exploring more in performance marketing and looking more into landing pages and really challenging the digital team to check our CRO, to check all of the different elements that we actually might have been distracted by for, doing those larger brand moves.
Yes. Yeah.
And that has actually made a large difference for us, like significant change. So, but we do have a couple of campaigns coming up this year where we're going to reintroduce that creative element, now knowing what we know and knowing what converts. With a couple of really interesting product announcements, coming up in the next couple of months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that so? I mean, you kind of led into my other question, was like any big failures. Is that sort of the one you were going to call out there?
I would say, yeah. I would say like there's failures in
maybe not big ones, but
well, no. I mean, I think anything we can learn from is great. That's my first thing. I think what is really unique with Semrush. And I say that because I haven't seen it. I've been working for 22 years. Maybe that's long, maybe it's not. But I haven't seen it anywhere else where a marketing team is encouraged to experiment and to pay for knowledge. It's a very interesting way to think about it. Like you want to run a test. It's $50K. You bet the following things. You have enough data that makes you think you can go down this path. And here's your bet. You're going to see a 4% lift in this, or that's the success criteria. If it wins, great. Now you get $300K investment to go test it again in a larger scale. And then if that wins, we do it globally. But there's at least a 50-50 pass fail on those types of things. Yes, and having a team that is secure enough to propose those ideas where they're not afraid of getting sacked because something didn't work out. Like you're smiling, but it's a very real thing. I mean, people at most companies get fired if something doesn't work out, or like it's right. Yeah. And I'm not saying we have major accountability, but at the same time, if it's a bet, if it's an experiment, there's a lot more safety there. So I think we have had lots of failures as much as we've had success in the last several years. But yeah, I think in terms of, what most people are interested in, like what's the biggest one? What's the kind of most expensive fail? That would probably be the CEO Kiddos campaign, even though it was very fun to do, but yeah.
Why do you think that, do you have any takeaways of why you think it didn't work out?
I think it was too abstract for people. I think that if it was like 5 years from now and we were even, I wouldn't call us a household name brand yet, but I think a lot of people are aware of us. We certainly have a great deal of equity. But I think that, if it was later down the line, it would appeal to a much broader audience.
Okay.
That's my feel. That's kind of what we took away from it. But yeah, in a way it was a shame because we didn't like fall in love with the idea or anything. We were very critical of it all along. Right. But the way that everything came out, like the creative was so sharp, like it was really polished. And maybe we also didn't give it enough flight time. I don't know. It was a little while ago, but that's what comes to mind. Yeah.
So we have a big content audience, SEO audience, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that team look like more specifically within that wider organization, though?
Sure. So Kyle Byers, who a lot of people know,
I think I know Kyle,
I'm sure you know Kyle.
Yep.
Widely considered probably one of the top 10 or 15 SEOs globally. I certainly think has been so instrumental in growing at least our channel. Not least what we impact with customers, but just a bit of background. When I came in 2021. And I hope I get in trouble for saying this, we hadn't really invested in our own SEO. It's really interesting. Most people, it's like the mind-blowing emotion.
Yeah,
like, wait a minute, Semrush, SEO, organic.
Cobbler's shoes or whatever.
Well, sure. But because we were so focused on this rapid growth, which we should always be, that we were paying for it, in paid acquisition. anyway, we grew that, and Kyle is really to credit for this. We grew from a team. There were like 3 or 4 people working in SEO at that time in 2021. He came to me with a proposal in spring of 2022, and his first round was like, I need 40 people to do this. And I said, wow, that's pretty gutsy, pretty bold investment.
Wow.
And I said, okay, well, why don't you start out with, for the next year, with a third of that. And if you achieve these marks, I'll give you what you want. And he overachieved.
Okay. Nice.
And so now, I can't disclose like specific numbers, but I would say that channel is 10x what it was when I arrived.
Oh, nice.
And that's Kyle. That's not me. That's Kyle. I mean, I'm enabling the investment, of course, but I think the practitioner is just amazing result from that team. And there's a combination between full-time writers and freelance writers. We're pretty global, and especially a lot of content folks hang out in all kinds of the worlds, all kinds of parts of the world. So that's truly a global team. But yes, Kyle is within the own media structure under Nick's leadership, and it's a good sized team. We're always querying how to make it better. We were impacted in May last year, like most other companies. HubSpot took a big dive as well. Yeah. We're not alone there, but at the same time, we're finding other ways to recover. Domain authority is never a guarantee. That's also kind of why we're around.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing I've been more interested in lately is, because we're kind of going down this direction from a service offering, is like global strategy, transcreation, localization. Like, how do you think about how you divide budgets there, market globally? Would love to hear more color there.
Yeah, I think, look, I would say that localization is super critical. I think in the last year, we've also, I know it's so fashionable to talk about AI, that's fine, but in terms of localizing, there are a handful of tools. I won't be able to recall them by name, sorry, but there are a couple of tools that the team have come back that have actually helped us accelerate so much. It's not just about the cost savings, but it's about time. So things like YouTube videos that we can, or even if it was this video, that can just be auto-magically, it's translated, but the lips are changed too. It's like, and we've passed them by a lot of native French speakers, native German speakers. Can't tell. So that has been just to give something practical, I'd have to go back and find the names. I can't recall them, but a couple of tools that have really helped us. I would say, to your question though, how we think about markets, North American market, and I'd say Western and Central Europe are very large for us. Asia continues to grow, continues to become larger and larger. But in terms of how we localize, I think, it was before I joined 5 or 6 years ago. We did have like regional specific marketing teams. We had teams in France, we had teams in Germany, DACH region, but I think that what we arrived at is that the focus for those teams, it wasn't really paying off. There's enough to put 1 or 2 people in market to localize and to run local events or to run local meetups, or certainly on an enterprise or an SLG motion. So I don't want to say that it's not important. It's, of course, hugely important. But I also think like the core of our message, the core of what we are offering to people, can really be kind of understood in any language at this point. Like this is that's my qualified view.
Yeah.
So I think localization is very important, but would I go and spend a significant amount of budget, to go and create multiple teams, to create multiple hyper-specific campaigns in very hyper-specific regions? That's something we don't do. Yeah.
One thing I've heard from people who do a lot of this is very often you could like have everything localized in market, but if you don't have a sales team or customer service team to support them, but your self-service, you were,
well, on the sales side, we do have for enterprise, we have massive coverage. Like there's a huge investment on the sales side, also on the marketing side, but it's even more on the sales side. This is literally sales-led growth. So we do have region-specific teams there on sales team, no question. Yeah. The question on my side is, in order to create enough demand to give the sales team wind, do we need the same in market? And right now, my answer is no. It could change. It could change. It doesn't mean that we aren't. Of course, we're localizing. Of course, we're creating like local content, or there's local meetups. But having dedicated teams in each region on the marketing side for sales led right now doesn't make sense. It might in a year or two. It might. I'm very happy to invest there. I just think right now we see so much wind and so much excitement in the market around enterprise, around Semrush Enterprise, that I just don't think we need to do it yet.
Makes sense.
Maybe later.
Makes sense,
yeah.
You touched on this lightly earlier, but that tension of, and I know for like high growth public company, brand building, and then it sounds like you're going more performance recently. Do you have like explicit measures of like, we're gonna put 10% in brand here, or or certain phases of certain companies should be really all brand early?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would say in between full year 2022, full year 2023, this is when we made like, I would say material investment in brand. Fast followed by performance campaigns that could reap that. So it wasn't, I'm always very skeptical when people say, we're going to put 60% brand and 30% performance, or the inverse of that, whatever it is.
Okay.
It's not so detached. First of all, it's a little bit too binary, the thinking of like brand will somehow not impact performance. So the amount, the actual ratio that you're spending, there's a maybe 20% crossover between those numbers anyway.
When you say fast follow, is that like retargeting campaigns off traffic to the website? Or
yes. Or what we think about, to be a purist for a moment, to be binary for a moment, you have like a phase one, which is like a hype phase, like a pre-hype phase, where that's brand led for like a month or a month and a half.
Okay.
And people don't even see the opportunity to go and convert for a little while. It just kind of keeps running, and you are served, even if you've been served those ads before. So that's what I mean about the fast follow. So I guess I just never think about it as this like true separation between brand and performance. And I think that also makes me a little bit different, because most people think about it as, this is a brand campaign, these are the impressions we're going to get, like there might be engagement on social, and like that's it. I don't see it that way. Like I have to be able to connect a brand spend to revenue. Have to. And that is also a very unique position, because most people say, well, how can you do that? Well, this is why we fast follow it with the performance side, because you can, if you keep the performance goals and metrics constant, and you change the creative each time, you can also gauge what's working really well on brand.
How do you do that on going back to the content SEO side? How are you measuring? Is that the same thing, like kind of direct performance, or how do you think about that?
With SEO?
Yeah.
I don't think about it the same. I do think that, of course, brand impacts organic search, of course. But I would say that we think a bit more in a linear way when it comes to organic search. Do we have the correct posture in terms of what people are looking, just like what we tell our customers, what people are looking for in the market? Is it relevant and meaningful content to them? And can that content convert? So I mean, organic search is definitely plugged into those large brand and performance campaigns. It's an element. It's never off on its own.
Okay.
But I would say that we've had such a degree of success over the years that I haven't triple clicked into that. And it's and actually how much wind it's a good question. How much wind is it getting from those brand spots versus performance versus their own performance on their own? It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Also just the idea of, many people will see content marketing and SEO content as like a top funnel measure.
Sure.
Or some of those topics, and like how some people, especially more recently, as it's getting squeezed, it's like harder to.
Well, we look at. Traffic is certainly leading indicator, but I think I would love to find someone to argue about since May of 24 that hasn't really asked the honest question of, are you going for traffic or are you going for vanity traffic? Because we learned that lesson as well in the last couple quarters, where yes, we've seen, I'd say, material change in traffic patterns. We're working on it. At the same time, we've seen the quality of users coming in. The LTV has actually increased. And so then you get to another question of, okay, well, maybe part of our content strategy was focused on too broad of topics, which is also why we got hit, just like others did by the update. But then you have to ask like, well, maybe that investment isn't such a good investment if customers are less sticky. So it's like on the surface, people have this alarm of, oh shit, traffic is down, things are bad, things are, okay. But I think the real is looking at like what's actually happening with revenue. Are you attracting healthier, more durable customers? And that's something that we actually found, I don't want to say unexpectedly, because we usually have reasonable confidence level in our data.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a surprise. So I don't mind, one of the metrics I'm primarily gold on is traffic. How do we get people to Semrush as like an individual, as an executive? And this is first time since I've been at Semrush where I'm not sure I want to really sign up to that this year. Not because of volatility, but because not sure it's the right metric, to be gold on necessarily. I think that for marketers, certainly for SEOs, yes, traffic should be like top, but it should also be the quality of revenue that you're bringing in. And that's something I don't think that most SEOs are gold on.
I agree. I mean, Rand, this is interesting, kind of thematic of like some other conversations. You probably know Rand Fishkin of SparkToro.
Yeah.
And he had a take of like, this is the year of traffic down, revenue up.
Yep.
But potentially. And I think there's a lot of that. But, I mean, what do you think? What should they be gold on? Yeah, I mean, revenue, I guess, but
I think traffic is absolutely crucial, but I think there's traffic, there's revenue, and there's content quality. And content quality is like the big kind of abstract question for people. And I think any team who gets comfortable with their, our content quality is amazing. It's great. It's exactly the team who's in trouble. As soon as you get too comfortable, you're in a bad spot. But I would say that I'm seeing more and more, and I even had this question from my team last year. It's like, Andrew, do you care most about traffic or do you care most about revenue? Pick one. And it's always it depends argument, And I just said, look, like I'm focused on traffic. You guys, like ultimately at the end of the day, I care about revenue. So find me the stickiest customers, the most qualified customers, and get them in the door, and let's keep them. So I actually see a future for organic folks to be much more gold on the revenue and the durability of the revenue that they bring in versus traffic. That's what I see.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's kind of, an interesting conversation I had with Nate Turner of 10 Speed, who's a content SEO agency as well. He gave a good parable of like how content engagements mature, and you're basically at the final stage of his maturity, which is customer LTV, essentially, not just like close
first payment or
So you're there now. It sounds 100%.
Like. Yeah, we've been there we've been there for a little while. But I also think that that's the point where, just like what I said a moment ago, where as soon as you feel like you've kind of mastered it and you've done, and like I said, Kyle's grown this program at least 10x since he got here. And it's a tricky spot to all of a sudden be kind of thrown off the game, but that's what growth marketers face, I think it's actually, that's the exciting part too. You've been crushing it for several quarters in a row. Whoa, big changes. Okay, have to adjust the plan, hold on to the table. Yeah. But I think that it would be really, of course, traffic matters. That we should always care about it. I would never say publicly or privately otherwise. I think that's a huge mark. But at the same time, on the business side, when you're working with finance for investment, when you're working with CEO, when you're working with others, like it can't only be about traffic, because unless you can prove what is vanity, what is not, and then in order to answer that question, you have to really go back to revenue.
Right.
And not everybody knows or feels comfortable doing that. But I think these are the important questions to ask.
Right. Makes sense. I mean, you touched on the transition. We're of course all in with AI. Like people can hypothetically go to AI now and ask for an SEO audit of their website. It's pretty.
Well, you can ask whatever you want. Yeah.
You can. Sure. Yeah, that's true. And get answers. But how's Semrush currently thinking about that transition?
Sure.
Feature set.
Well, it's interesting because I think even as you ask that question, you can ask anything you want and you get answers. I think we should also be asking, and I'm not picking on you. It's a good question, but I think most people are not querying the validity of the answer. And this is a very serious problem, I think, for marketers. Of course, I'll get to what we're doing about it. But I think Columbia Journalism Review published, I think it was March 4th, a study about how, I think the title of the research was, AI search has a citation problem. And I will probably misquote some specific figure. Sorry but you can Google it and find it. But there was significant research that came back in the pattern of misinformation that across all your favorite new engines, like all your favorite search opportunity. And it's a big problem for us as marketers because on the one hand, we should be experimenting. We should be using these tools. We should be, of course, like I'm doing it too. Everyone should be doing it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, there is quite a bit of, humans and people and buyers love scandals. And right now there is this kind of undertone or undercurrent of, Google's getting completely disrupted. All the search is going for AI search. I had an advertising editor at a household name brand newspaper, which I'm meeting in New York on Friday, come to me and say, we heard this rumor that there's been a significant disruption. We pulled the data. It's not true. What's happening with AI and AI search is additive to Google. It's additive. And I think that the biggest problem I see for marketers, both in our community and otherwise, is that there are distractions everywhere. Like, yes, I can go and ask this question and I get this answer. But I think it was over 70% of cases with paid subscriptions to AI search. Again, I have to check if it's 70%. I might get it wrong, but it was a majority. Are citing incorrect sources and they're not telling you. There's no confidence level of the answer. And so I'm not saying this to discredit or to challenge if we should. No, I'm not. Of course we should be using this. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
But we have to be, as marketers though, we have to be serious about what's actually going to drive growth. And right now, pivoting all into AI and like forgetting of things that have worked for several years that of course continue to change, it's very dangerous for marketers. And I see this a lot. I see people asking GPT to write a blog post. Okay, maybe it saves you 50% of time, but what data are you feeding it? Are you feeding it Semrush data? We also see some customers doing that. I wish our customers would use their core subscription and ContentShake, which does effectively, it's Gen AI for articles, for all kinds of material that's literally ready to rank. There's no need to go to GPT. I'd say that's more of an awareness problem on our side.
Right,
Not a lot of customers know about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we're doing when it comes to AI, so we actually just 2 weeks ago, we launched AI Toolkit, which is for small businesses. We call this as part of our PLG motion. So AI Toolkit lets companies, small businesses, look up how their brand is showing up in AI search.
Okay.
That's like the first step in figuring out how to influence. You can see also vis-a-vis your competitors, and I think it's nominal. It's maybe $99 a month, something like this. But the feedback has already been. I mean, we spend very little on marketing. It's a huge uptick. Same thing, on the enterprise side, AI optimization. So we're trying to figure out if there's a way to couch this term, from SEO to AIO, to optimizing for AI. But again, we're just not all in on AI everything. AI most things, yes.
Right. Yeah.
So, but here this is for enterprise clients. So it's again like that, the toolkit, but on steroids, like much bigger, much more compelling, and certainly more expensive because there's more value. And that's in closed beta for another couple of weeks. But there are significant groundswell of demand for that, which we are excited to fill, in terms of capacity. But there's a lot of interest. So I think that's just what's happening right now.
Okay.
Core users will also find that AI Assistant just launched. So that's a GPT style interface within the core product.
Okay.
That's being rolled out now. But I would say that this is really the primary driver for Oleg taking the Chief Technology Officer title. So, Oleg has grown this. It's like probably one of the best unicorn stories you can hear of, starting bootstrapping all the way to public company and being public company CEO for many years. It's amazing. I'm so proud of him and what he's built, and also just very, humbled to be part of the journey. It's amazing every day. Not every day is super easy, but every day is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm most excited about, especially in the context of AI, like that is literally Oleg's whole focus going forward, is how do we integrate meaningful AI for marketers in our product? Right. Not just AI to say this has AI. I see a lot of shade on LinkedIn. for legacy software companies, which I would not classify as a legacy software company, but legacy software companies, sprinkling AI, and then they say they have it.
Right. On the landing page
but this is like a whole new function at the executive level to focus on development of AI for products that our customers really give a shit about.
Nice.
So that's like we're just starting that. That's the part that gets me really pumped.
You beginning of your point there, it reminded me two things. One, that rank tracker in AI is amazing. I've been doing different breakfasts and networking with other SEOs and marketers, and by far the most frequent came up this morning. Most frequent thing brought up, so I'm sure it makes sense. A lot of groundswell.
Well, even at this conference yesterday,
people were asking.
There were 3 people at there's a small tables of 6 people, and when we finished, half the table said, "Can I give you my email?" There's 2 CMOs of 3 billion revenue big companies, one smaller, and they said, we know it's in closed beta now, but like, how can we get on the list?
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I guess everyone's a salesperson to some degree, but it's just very interesting that this is exactly what people want right now.
Yeah. It's just in the moment there for sure. So is there I know there is, but what specific tool? You mentioned that you have a lot of features and a lot of things that you can do within Semrush. What do you think is an underrated tool or feature currently?
I would say the easiest thing that comes to mind is already the AI toolkits, which again, that just launched. So by nature, it's underrated because it just came out. But I also think ContentShake, a lot of folks don't know about this tool. Even still, which I need to put more attention on.
Could you give a couple sentence summary?
Yeah, ContentShake. So basically, ContentShake it's generative AI that's embedded within Semrush. So if you're in content, it'll help you create articles, pull in video. There's basically you can produce ranking ready content or for blogs, for other applications, and it's all based off of your the Semrush data that are in your projects. So everything that you've already built is already primed and ready to create for you. But a lot of people don't know about that. And I'm really struggling. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with this because it is so much better than an alternative of like exporting data. I mean, you can do it, of course.
Yeah.
But exporting your data from Semrush or your platform and taking it to a third-party GPT, like you're going to go through so much more editorial than you would have to if you would have used with ContentShake.
Right.
Yeah. So
nice.
So I think that's probably one of the most underrated tools, I would say.
I need to check that out. So the second point I realized of what we were talking about previously with AI product adoption, Paul May, I'm not sure if you know him from BuzzStream, CEO, he's in Austin. It's a link building outreach tool. And he had a great post of like, they're trying to solve outreach workflow specifically. And there's a lot of hallucination when they integrated it in their product. And what he did is he actually prompted AI to say, when you don't know this information, actually feedback not applicable.
Speak up. Yeah, speak up. Yeah.
And that is so universally applicable as just a prompt engineering tip that I'll be using. I was telling people this morning, I got a little help on my March Madness bracket, and it gave me a region winner that wasn't even in the region. Of like the newest ChatGPT model was telling me a winner that was not in play.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. Yeah.
Well, I just think, again, like I'm very long on the prospect of like the value add of AI. There are certainly risks for not just for what we do. I think, it depends on how big you want the conversation to go. But at the same time, it's also just like early innings. I think that's what we have to remember. And I do think marketers right now, I hear it every day. People are distracted, discouraged, not sure what to use. My boss is telling me I have to use this, but it's not really working. I don't know how to push back. You got to find a way to continue to grow and to experiment on the side, but just know these risks. Like it's very real for people right now. And I think I do find that people don't really want to talk about that because it makes them sound like they're not embracing AI. But I think that's bullshit. Like you're a real strategic marketer. You're working on these things. You're not always going to get the result you want right away. And that's got to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great, Andrew. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing all these insights about inner workings of Semrush.
Sure.
And, anything big coming up? What should people, when's your next conference?
Let's see. We're at OMR in May. We have Spotlight, which is actually very big very big event in October 29th in Amsterdam. Well, last year was our first attempt, our first test of doing our own branded conference, which it's a big pursuit. It's like, and we had about 800 people, 800 customers come. This year we're going for 1,200, even bigger spot in Amsterdam. We had great feedback last year, and I know the team is very happy to be able to offer tickets and ticket sales throughout the year. Last year we greenlit the project so late. Promoting tickets for event sales in the summertime is not always the best way to start, and that's absolutely my fault in terms of getting the investment across the line. But the team's very happy this year. So Spotlight, I would encourage everyone to check out. Yeah.
Nice. How did you pick Amsterdam?
Amsterdam, first of all, so well connected, certainly for European, but also, there's a daily direct flight from Austin to Amsterdam now.
That's true, yeah.
I know it well, that route. And we just found that especially for concentration for customers in Europe, it's very strong. This year, we also have SMX, Third Door Media Conference. That's happening in Boston in June, the first week of June. So we're balancing the kind of overall portfolio of events. But this is first time since before COVID that SMX will be in person. So Mark Sirkin, Mark Sirkin at Third Door is like ecstatic about this, and I'm excited too.
Yeah. I met my wife at SMX Advanced a long time ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
okay. Sorry, this is technically SMX Advanced. Sorry. So yes, the same event. SMX Advanced in June.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was the best one. So
awesome.
That's great.
Well, I hope you're going to go to this one.
Yeah. We'll try. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Andrew.
Awesome. Yeah. Cheers.